You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by the Script Summit Screenplay Contest, where you can win a cash prize or even a contract with a Hollywood talent manager. All you have to do is visit scriptsummit.com for more info. All right, welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast. On this episode, I am joined by a guest host as we analyze and break down a film to discover what works and what doesn't. All right, welcome to the podcast. We are live on Facebook. I have on story analyst and staff writer at WeFixYourScript.com, Kristy Leigh Lussier. Thanks for being on.
I am so excited to be here today.
All right, so the film that we had picked out is a rom-com drama called The Half of It. All right, I'm going to pitch you the log line. Ready? When smart but cash-strapped teen Ellie Chu agrees to write a love letter for a jock, she doesn't expect to become his friend or fall for his crush. Now, I thought you did a heck of a job picking this one. Yeah. This was a good film. I really enjoyed it.
I did too. I actually probably enjoyed it more than I really thought I would. I mean, I knew I would like it because I love rom-com stuff. So yeah, it's right in my wheelhouse. But
it's an original concept in the fact that it's a kind of like a play on Cyrano De Bergerac, right? Yes. Where you have the muse and you have like the big tough guy who's kind of a little stupid and he kind of helps him catch the girl. And it was a play on that, except the central character, Ellie, is a lesbian.
I know.
And she's into the love interest, Aster. And I thought that was awesome. What are your thoughts?
It's such a modern look into just kind of gender and sexuality and the way we look at relationships today. Yeah. But I just thought it was really interesting that they even went to that level of like, this is a girl in high school. She's 17 and you're just still coming into yourself and trying to figure out who you are. And you've got this extra level of definitely feeling like, I don't know what this even is, which they put love on top of that, saying that what is love kind of thing. But They do. They say, what is love? And so Ellie's character is, she doesn't really believe in love. She's never experienced love. And so that's great. And then you have Aster, who is the love interest, is kind of almost like a poet. She's just very artistic and you can tell that she is very passionate. Right. And then you have Munski, who was kind of like the dumb jock. And he is an all-in kind of guy who believes in love in the simplest form, I would say. Mm-hmm. So you have these three great different dynamics playing with each other throughout the entire story. Now, what I really like about this is they come out and they tell you this is not a love story. For sure.
You know, and that I thought that was risky because that can go wrong. You can state that, but if you're going to state that, how are you going to come up with this satisfying ending if you're telling people like, look, they're not going to end up together? Like you're spoiling it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was perfect. It actually was not, to me, it ended up not actually being a love story.
No, not at all. Actually,
isn't that crazy?
I think it was more of like a coming of age.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And I think they all learn how to love in different ways, right?
Right.
So Ellie learns how to love Aster, but I think she also learns how to become Munski's friend. And I think Munski learns love through that aspect as well. Like he learns there are more facets to love than just the hopeless romantic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they touch on that too. They really, they touch on that as the process moves on of these words that she's writing in these letters.
Yeah.
And they start to almost kind of evaluate and define what love is. And there's such a simplicity to him where it's just like, well,
I know.
I just love her.
He's just like sender emojis.
Yeah. I love sender emojis. Which is probably the best, like a lot of the best comedy in the film is.
Oh, yeah.
Like language and
it is
a part of that. Which is
It
awesome.
is. Yeah, he's a great foil for Ellie. And I love the fact that they started each act with a quote. And the quotes got more personal as the film, went on and the characters grew. The quotes got more personal. And then when the characters finally become who they are, their quote was emojis.
Yes.
And I didn't even understand the emojis because, I don't know if you're even supposed to understand them. It was like an owl and something.
That's a caterpillar. It was awesome. And the pineapple was great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it was great. I thought it was really clever. It's just so smart and funny. And let's talk about the intro, though. I actually loved the introduction to this film.
Where she brings up the Greek mythology
she brings up the Greek mythology and she talks about how originally two people were one and then the gods split them because they were jealous. And then you spend the rest of your life trying to find your other half. Hence the name of half the name of the film. But visually, right? Because I'm a sucker for visual subtext, right? So visually, right? If you're watching it through, other than the fact that they had this cool drawing on notebook paper that you'd have if you're in high school,
right? But
there were scenes where people were seeking their other halves. So you had a guy with one sock on, and he was reaching for the other sock that was lost, and it was just out of reach, and he couldn't get to it. I'm like, there's your visual metaphor, And they painted in cool little things like that, really kind of setting you up for what to expect. And I always think that just takes any story to the next level.
Oh, for sure. Even right off the bat, if that's what you're kind of starting out with, you can expect that that's what you're going to see throughout. And you should be wary of it and look for it. Look for that thread throughout.
Yeah.
Because even in that opening sequence too, there's the flower trying to reach. And then later on, she paints the flower. And so I thought, there's the callback. And it was fantastic. It was great.
Absolutely. Any kind of like brilliant foreshadowing like that, if you can put that into a script, it's going to pay off if you do it right. Now, what did you think about her talking about being bold, right? So Ellie would text Aster back and forth pretending to be Munski. And eventually when they finally kind of broke the ice, she talks about being bold and how Aster is secretly scared and timid, which is interesting because Ellie outwardly is scared and timid, but she's actually a very strong person. And so together they're able to talk about, being bold. And I thought it was great because she's setting up for Aster to eventually be bold enough to maybe be romantic with a girl.
Yeah. Or at least break free from the shell she's even living in or the tomb she's even living in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so that multifaceted approach in the way they were doing graffiti on the wall was so cool.
Oh, it was just fantastic. And here's what I even loved and took me to get to probably act 3 to really like soak it in. But, ultimately Ellie is, she never feels like she's seen and, or even heard.
Yeah.
I mean, even down to her dad, where she's sitting right next to her dad every night, but she never feels like he actually sees her.
Yeah.
And so that's what was really unique about this in this way that they were using words and the form of communication, because even though it was using words and language, it was her way to be seen, which was amazing. And they obviously built on that, which was great. But I loved that.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Her sitting next to her father and her father giving priority over a black and white movie, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the movies that he was always watching were romantic. Right. It was a man and a woman. And this guy is laying there and he's secretly just heartbroken and he's reliving kind of romantic thoughts as he's watching this film because he's lost his other half. So he's totally lost. Right. And Ellie is trying to find herself and then she can't find herself in front of her father,
Yeah. Yeah. And see, I would beg to argue that she does know love. I think that she really recognizes the only true love she's probably ever seen is her mother and father.
Yeah.
And she does say that at one point in the film. So everything she knows about that is based off the suffering she's watching her father go through right now.
Right.
Because of that. Yeah.
And she's bitter and jaded, right? She wants to probably subconsciously kind of protect herself from it because she's watched what love can do to a man. It can break a man, a great man.
For sure.
And so, of course, she's not going to believe in that, which is brilliant. I mean, you think of any 17-year-old kid, that's intelligent is going to think that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Unless you're like Munsky and you're just like, letters are cool.
Why can't I just text her and we can just go on a date,
I just
and
put
eat some
my
fries?
put my fries in my shake. It's just like, that had to be such a fun character to write.
And he was great. That actor was fantastic. I loved all the performances, to be honest.
I really did. So Steve's got a comment. So he says, she was her father's daughter. So when they were together, they were one. I mean, that's a great point. Very good point.
That's good too.
Let's see. I thought the 5 strokes was a really great idea. And it really kind of shows visually how to really take advantage of the craft. And
that's a powerful point. It's a powerful moment. Spoilers, at the end, when that's the question she asks. So she doesn't say, is this the guy you really want to be with? Or, are you going to do whatever? She uses that actual question. And that's the moment. And I thought it was one of the most powerful moments in the whole film. It was awesome.
Oh, I agree. I think one thing I really respect about this film is it's a film like this. It's easy to label it as an LGB, film. It's easy to go there, but I don't think you need to go there because they really didn't hype on the sexuality of the kids at all. It was Ellie as a character, and I feel Ellie's a character that happens to be gay. I don't feel Ellie is a gay character, and I think she is learning who she is and she's becoming who she is meant to be. And then Munsky, I mean, because you could have gone there, you could have gone very heavy on the theme of religious beliefs versus an LGB theme, right?
Yes,
because it's all there. Munsky, they're all going to church. She plays on the church organ. But it was very light. They didn't go heavy on it. And I actually thought that was a brilliant idea.
I really did. But here's where I questioned. And the moment I went, that kind of feels like it's out of left field. It's when Munksy actually says to her, like, you're sinning and you're going to hell.
You're going to hell.
And so, that, like, it felt like that kind of came out of nowhere because the basis of their relationship that we've known so far really had no religious element to it. And it didn't even give that sense that he was overly religious anyway. Yeah. So it felt kind of like it came out of left field.
I can see where that, I can see where that comes from. And I think the only thing I would say is every time they met was in a church. Every time they were chatting was in confessional.
That's true.
So the church itself is a set piece. And so I think they're subconsciously just trying to tell you, like, he's a faith-based guy. If he feels safe enough to go into a church to have their kind of talks about Astor, it's the only thing I could come up with. But I mean, I thought it was shocking because you don't expect that to come out of Munsky. You don't expect him to be like, you're going to go to, like, whoa, right?
Right.
But he overcomes it. He moves past it. He sees through it. And that is when we learn that his arc isn't really about falling in love with Astor. It is about him becoming friends with Ellie, but it's also about him getting a voice in his family.
Yes.
And getting their respect. And I thought that was, we're going to change the ingredients to the sausage factory that the parents run that's dying. I thought that was great.
That was fantastic. I mean, the first scene that you see his whole family, they're all arguing and the two of them are standing there. And then you juxtapose it with him sitting there and eating with her and her dad. And it's so quiet. And again, he doesn't have a voice. He doesn't even have a voice in his own family. He's probably been lost and buried in them for so long.
Yeah, so that's very true.
This was his way to find his voice.
They are all really coming into themselves. Even from the love interest Astor, who is finding, she realizes she wants to go to art school and maybe not marry Trigg, who is easily one of the antagonists of the story.
I have to say, I know you're in love with me, but it's okay that you're in love with me. Like that was, I know it was kind of overdone.
The best part of that scene is the father squirting the hose at him. And he's like, this is cashmere. What are you doing? This is cashmere. Yeah, I thought that was absolutely hysterical. And I'm watching with my wife and I'm like, I think that's the hose to the sink. And he just uses it as a weapon.
Yeah.
And they totally established it that way. I thought that was great. So
it was great. It was perfection.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the antagonists. And then the other antagonists are the kids in the truck who make fun of Ellie, calling her a choo-choo train. So those are the other antagonists.
Yeah. So. And again, like, when she goes to do the performance at the talent show and spoilers again, they, mess with the piano.
This is the episode.
It really kind of hit that level of like, okay, this is one of those kind of high school drama feels. And other than them driving by her all the time and just saying choo choo.
Yeah.
There was never really conflict in terms of she's getting bullied by these people.
I think that's the weakest part of the whole film is the antagonist angle. I think we could have probably developed that a little bit more, whether it was Trig, whether it was the other kids, or together.
For sure.
I think that could have been definitely developed. But I mean, no film is perfect. No script is perfect.
No, so. I mean, and obviously it sets up the transition of like, now she's seen and people know that she's alive and there.
Yeah, exactly.
It gives a good shift. I liked it.
Yeah, no, I agree. So outside of that, I would say that there is this moment I have to tell you about. Okay.
Yeah, you tell me your moment.
Right. So they're stalking Aster. Ellie and Munski are stalking Aster because they're trying to find similarities between the two. And one of them, Aster, was in a movie theater and they're watching a scary movie and she's giggling.
She laughs.
Right. Okay, here's the thing. The very first date I took my wife on was Disturbing Behavior, which was this really awful horror film that came out in the 90s. Okay.
I know it. Yeah, I know.
I took her to that film. There's a lot of people in the theater. Our first date, we're sitting in there and there's a big jump scare and everybody screams and Dana laughs.
Awesome.
She giggles, right? And I look at her and I go like, all right, that's different.
Yes.
I've never seen a girl do that before.
I'm going to marry you.
Yeah. You're my other half.
Yeah, other half.
So she did that. I thought it was absolutely hysterical, and she will still do that. She will still laugh at really bad jump scares and things like that. Where I am like really like I get really freaked out by it. She's just like giggling it up. I lean over to her and go like, "You're totally laughing at this, and you're weirding out the people around us."
But you either
goes, did you not see it?
It's a natural reaction. You either laugh because you're of a fear. People laugh, to combat that, or they get scared. And I loved it. I thought it was great.
Oh yeah, no, I only saw that. I thought it was absolutely perfect.
Can we talk about the music for a second too? Because I've got to say,
okay,
that was probably one of my favorite parts of the whole film as well. And I'm huge when it comes to like music and choosing certain songs to tie into what's going on in the narrative. And I was very, very impressed with the song choices on a lot of the significant scenes. Like there was Gordon Lightfoot, If You Could Read My Mind, which was perfect in the diner scene.
Very good.
And then that Chicago song, If You Leave Me Now. And it was just like, it was just perfect. It was like great. The music choice was so fantastic. I loved it.
I agree. It's a really good soundtrack.
Yeah.
And it fits perfectly within the world that was created. Steve has a great question. He goes, was she her own antagonist, stopping her from being herself? And I think this is a good question because the way that they, I think her name is Alice Wu, is the director writer. The way this film is structured, subplots and are switched around. So there are multiple heart plots. They use different characters for multiple heart plots. It's easy to say Aster is the heart plot, but Ellie and Munski are a heart plot. And so she really weaves multiple subplots into multiple characters. It was exceptionally difficult to do.
Yeah.
And does it. So could she be her own antagonist? Absolutely. I would think that's definitely a possibility and was used that way on top of having Trig. I mean, it's just such an interwoven story. You could sit down and watch this thing and go, oh, that was entertaining. Right.
Yeah. Right.
But when you look at what went into this film, you're like, this is like masterclass stuff.
Oh, it was phenomenal. I mean, I was blown away at the end. I can't believe how well written that story was. It was just fantastic. And you're right. Everything about the interwoven aspects and these characters that, yes, Steve, I do believe that part of her was her own antagonist because when you've lived in a box for so long, or you feel like you haven't been seen for so long, and you build a mechanism the way she did to really just keep herself safe in her safe space, that's hard to break out of. So even when this guy comes along and you feel like you could be friends with him, you're not going to just immediately know how to break out of that safe space.
Yeah.
And it was really well played and well written for that.
Right. Especially, yeah. You just have to think every guy has an agenda, so I always
Right.
look at like, so if I'm not a woman, but if I was a woman and I had a guy coming at me and I was pretty, I would assume there would be an agenda there. And so I liked the fact that she talked about being a pretty girl. When Aster talked about being a pretty girl, I was like, that I've never seen that on film before. I've never seen dialogue from that kind of a perspective before. Because whenever you hear about being a pretty girl, it's always the mean girl aspect. But she showed a softer, almost victimized side of it, of how people are trying to manipulate you. That's brilliant.
It was brilliant. And I literally wrote this down. One of my favorite lines in the whole film is one that she was writing in one of her letters back to Ellie. And she said, "I'm like a lot of people, which makes me kind of no one." That was amazing.
Oh my God. That's
because she's like every other popular pretty girl, but she feels like she's nobody.
The blondes with the pink scarves, man, that was some crazy cult stuff going on.
There's your mean girl throw there. And they were pink. So it was throw.
I was like, wow, this is something. All right. So Katie's got something here. Katie says, to your point, not being overly LGBTQ, I got the sense that Ellie inherently knew what she was attracted to Aster, but she seemed like she was exploring feelings for Munski. At one point, she got jealous, and you couldn't quite tell who she was jealous of, Munski or Aster, coming from Ellie's perspective. I actually like this question, Katie, because I actually considered this as well. Yeah. I felt that she was jealous, but this is, my interpretation. So from my prism, I felt that Ellie was jealous of Munski because of the friendship that they had made. She was jealous of Aster over the romantic interest she had. And so I think it was two different aspects of love that she felt were being threatened. And I think in my personal interpretation, that was the feeling the character was going through.
Right. And I kind of feel like it wasn't necessarily jealousy. I think it was probably just more sadness.
Okay.
When she's sitting in the truck and she's looking through the window of the diner, it's a moment that I feel like this character would think, finally, I found somebody who can understands me. But again, they can't see me because I'm not the person sitting in front of them.
I got it. No, that's really good.
It's a man instead of me. And so that was kind of the sense I picked up from that scene.
It's very Cyrano De Bergerac. I mean, it's very much hidden behind the bushes, giving the muse qualities. I totally agree with you. But man, this is why I tell writers, if you want to do something really cool, take something classical and put a new original twist on it. I would have never thought of taking that old play or story, doing it from a perspective of an LGB like that. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's a Netflix original for a reason. That's a great concept, well executed.
Yeah, I was, again, like I said, I was very surprised. I went into it thinking like, okay, it's probably going to be a coming of age and, teen romantic drama. Right, yeah. And at the end, I sat there and I just was like, I can't even believe how good this film was, and more people aren't talking about it.
I totally agree with you. How have people not talked about this film? How have I not even heard anything about this film before? Right. This is a good film. It's a solid film.
Yeah.
Because I sat down going, all right, here we go. I mean, other than the fact that some of the actors look like they were 25 and they were in high school, I was like, all right, standard rom-com fare, right? All right. So let's talk about the ending. I think the ending was great.
Love it.
Aster and Ellie kiss, but there is no commitment there. It's just an acknowledgement. And I thought that was beautiful. Munski accepts his place in the family, and then him, and he goes to bat for Ellie with her father, which then creates that kind of change. Yeah. And I love Munski's relationship with her father. It's competitive in a subtle, weird way.
It's so
when they're just mashing meat, and you can just feel like that's a father trying to protect his daughter over some strange, weird guy. Yeah, it's great.
And he has this moment where he tells his story about his wife to him in Chinese.
Yeah.
But
Oh man.
He understood it. Like this kid who says earlier in the film, I'm not good at language either. Like no one can understand me either. But yet here's this moment where the two of them are speaking, and yet
absolutely.
they can't even understand each other. Like it's crazy.
But he understood the emotion, and Munski is a kid that understands love. I mean, that's his superpower. Yeah. So, and he's like really fast. And I don't want to get into the football stuff, but I thought when he accidentally caught the football because he was like stupidly waving to the crowd, I thought it was hilarious. I literally laughed out loud. I love the final scene.
I do too.
Where she's on the train and not even the foreshadowing of Munski running after the train. Right? We all saw that coming.
I'm going to tell you something.
Okay.
I did
really?
not see that coming. Yes.
Oh my God. I thought you, I totally saw that coming.
I didn't like as soon as he started running, I was like, oh, that's a great callback. But I actually really didn't put the two together.
Oh yeah. Well, so that's great. Right. Because that's love from a friend, and she knows that, and that's why she starts crying. But what I love is how Ellie looks out across the train and she sees everybody sitting alone, looking out the window, longing for their other. And I was like, oh my God, that isn't a perfect ending. And then we see her sitting strong, not having to look out the window because she's found who she is. Yeah. Oh man.
It was perfection. Perfection. I loved it.
All right. Do we have any other comments or questions, or do you have anything?
I don't know. I just have to tell people, if you haven't seen this film and you have Netflix, like honestly, this weekend, I know it's Valentine's Day, so yeah, whatever. If you have a special someone, maybe sit down and watch this, because you will be very surprised at how just strong this script was and this film was. It was just so good. Like it was so good.
I agree. It came out 2020, the half of it on Netflix. They call it a comedy, drama, romance. I think it's a solid film. Yeah. It somehow got buried on the Netflix algorithm. Don't know why. We watch rom-coms in this house, but I'm really glad you found it. And this episode is brought to you by the Script Summit Screenplay Contest. I've got to get that shout out there. So at Script Summit, you can win a cash prize or the chance for a Hollywood talent manager. Outside of that, thesuccessfulscreener.com is where you can go to find more podcasts. And we even have free screenplays, all kinds of screenwriting resources. So I'm thinking next week, sci-fi. What do you think?
Yes, I'm down. Let's do it.
I'm a sci-fi junkie.
I live with a sci-fi action junkie. So we're good. We're good.
Excellent. All right. So you guys in the community, if you want to throw out quality sci-fi films, we're not interested in analyzing bad films. It's easy to analyze a bad film. Let's get quality films that we can kind of break down and really kind of show the secrets of the recipe, right? Secret sauce.
The secret sauce. Yes, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Yep. Thanks. Have a good night.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media, where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.